A brave dog leads the police to a hidden shed, where a terrifying secret is uncovered. What they find inside will leave them shaken to their core. Watch as the dog guides them through a life-changing discovery that no one saw coming. Write in the comments where you're watching this video from. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the quiet neighborhood. Birds sang cheerful songs, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the tall oak trees lining the streets. It was a perfect morning, the kind that made everyone feel hopeful and happy. The air smelled fresh, and the streets were calm, with only a few people walking their dogs or heading to work. At the local police station, officers were getting ready for their day. Officer Williams, a friendly man with a kind smile, was organizing his gear. He loved his job and enjoyed helping people in the community. Today felt like any other day, and he was looking forward to a peaceful shift. His fellow officers chatted quietly, sharing stories and plans for the day ahead. As Officer Williams stepped outside to take a break, he felt the warm sun on his face. He took a deep breath, enjoying the peaceful morning. Suddenly, his peaceful moment was interrupted by the sound of frantic barking. He turned to see a large, brown dog running toward him, its ears pinned back and its eyes wide with fear. The dog's fur was slightly tousled, and it was clearly distressed. The dog didn't run past Officer Williams or bark at him aggressively. Instead, it stopped right in front of him, panting heavily and looking up with pleading eyes. Officer Williams knelt down, trying to calm the animal. "Hey there, buddy," he said softly, reaching out a hand. The dog sniffed his hand but didn't relax. Instead, it continued to bark, a high-pitched, urgent sound that made Officer Williams's heart race. He stood up slowly, noticing that the dog's behavior was unusual. It wasn't just barking for attention, there was something more pressing going on. The dog turned and started running down the street, glancing back to make sure Officer Williams was following. Without thinking much about it, Officer Williams began to follow the dog, curious and concerned. As he walked, more officers started to notice the dog and its frantic behavior. One by one, they began to follow, wondering what was causing the animal so much distress. The dog led them through the familiar streets, down narrow alleys, and into a part of town they didn't often patrol. The officers exchanged puzzled looks but continued to follow the dog, sensing that something important was happening. The dog moved with purpose, weaving through the streets and avoiding obstacles with surprising agility. It seemed to know exactly where it was going, and its urgency made the officers quicken their pace. Officer Williams felt a knot in his stomach, a mix of concern and curiosity. What could have frightened this dog so much that it was leading them away from their usual route? They followed the dog to the edge of a wooded area on the outskirts of the town. The trees were tall and thick, casting long shadows on the ground. The dog paused at the entrance to the woods, turning to look at the officers with intense eyes. It barked again, a deep, resonant sound that echoed through the quiet forest. Officer Williams took a deep breath, feeling a sense of responsibility. "All right, everyone, let's see what's going on here," he said, signaling the others to follow him into the woods. The officers moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the dim light of the forest. The dog led them deeper into the woods, its nose to the ground and ears perked up, alert for any sign of danger. The trees seemed to close in around them, the sounds of the morning now muffled by the dense foliage. Officer Williams kept a close eye on the dog, noticing how it moved with confidence and urgency. As they ventured further, the atmosphere began to change. The cheerful sounds of birds were replaced by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. The path became uneven, with roots and rocks jutting out from the ground, making it difficult to walk. The officers had to navigate carefully, their boots crunching on the fallen leaves and twigs. After what felt like an eternity, the dog suddenly stopped. It stood completely still, its body tense and its eyes fixed on something ahead. Officer Williams signaled for the others to stop as well, his heart pounding in his chest. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that something significant was about to happen. In front of them, partially hidden by the trees, was an old wooden shed. It looked abandoned, with peeling paint and a door hanging loosely on its hinges. The shed was surrounded by overgrown bushes and vines, making it difficult to see what was inside. The dog approached the shed cautiously, its growls low and warning. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to expect. Officer Williams took a step forward, reaching for his flashlight to peer inside the shed. The light revealed a dark, cluttered space filled with old tools and forgotten items. But then, something caught his eye, a small, flickering light coming from a corner of the shed. His curiosity piqued. He called out to the other officers, "Stay back, everyone. Let me check this out." He moved closer to the shed, the dog following closely behind. As he drew near, the flickering light became clearer. It was coming from a lantern hanging from a hook on the wall. But there was no one else in sight. Officer Williams felt a chill run down his spine, a sense of unease settling in his stomach. Why was this shed abandoned, and what was causing the light to flicker? He reached out to open the door further, the hinges creaking loudly in the silence. Inside, the shed was even more cluttered up close, with shadows dancing on the walls from the lantern's light. Officer Williams scanned the room, his eyes searching for any signs of movement. Suddenly, the dog let out a loud bark, startling him. He turned to see the dog growling at something behind him. Before he could react, a loud crash echoed through the shed, and a hidden door in the floor swung open. Officer Williams's heart raced as he looked down into the darkness below. The dog took a step back, its fur standing on end, and bared its teeth, growling fiercely. The officers behind him hesitated, unsure of what was happening. Officer Williams knew they needed to stay calm. He reached for his flashlight and carefully shone it down into the opening. The light revealed a set of old stairs leading down into the darkness. Taking a deep breath, he decided they had to investigate further. "Stay close and be ready for anything," he instructed the officers, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. They began to descend the stairs slowly, the wooden steps creaking under their weight. The air grew colder as they went deeper, the light from above fading into darkness. The dog led the way, its presence reassuring yet still tense. The officers moved cautiously, their senses on high alert for any sign of danger. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a large, underground chamber. The space was dimly lit by a few old lamps hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows on the walls. The room was filled with old furniture, boxes, and other forgotten items, all covered in dust. But what caught Officer Williams's attention was the sight of several people huddled together in the corner, looking scared and confused. The officers quickly approached the group, offering words of comfort and reassurance. The people, seeing the officers and the dog, began to relax slightly, though their eyes still showed fear and uncertainty. Officer Williams asked, "Are you okay? What happened here?" One of the people, a young woman with tear-streaked cheeks, stepped forward. "We were brought here against our will," she explained, her voice shaking. "We don't know why or who did this to us." Officer Williams exchanged a worried glance with his colleagues. "Don't worry, we're here to help you," he assured her. "We'll get you out of here safely." As they began to help the captives up the stairs, the dog remained vigilant, its ears perked and eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. Officer Williams couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than met the eye. Why had the dog led them here? What was the connection between the dog and the people they had just rescued? As they reached the top of the stairs, the officers began to secure the area, ensuring that no one else could enter or exit without their knowledge. The dog, sensing that the immediate danger had passed, relaxed slightly but stayed close by, its presence a constant reminder of the mysterious events that had unfolded. Officer Williams took a moment to catch his breath, looking around at the faces of the people they had just rescued. He felt a deep sense of responsibility and gratitude toward the dog that had guided them here. Without its help, who knew how many more people might have been left in that dark, hidden place? As the officers began to lead the captives back to the surface, Officer Williams looked back at the shed, now calm and quiet once more. He couldn't help but wonder about the dog's story. How had it known exactly where to lead them? Was there something special about this dog, something that made it more than just a loyal pet? The morning had started peacefully, but now it had turned into something far more complicated and urgent. Officer Williams knew that this was just the beginning of a bigger story, one that would require all their courage and teamwork to uncover the truth behind the abandoned shed and the terrified people it held. As they emerged from the woods, the sun was higher in the sky, shining brightly down on them. The officers could see their patrol cars parked nearby, and a sense of relief washed over them. They had done something important today, something that made a real difference in people's lives. And it was all thanks to a frightened dog who had asked for help in the most urgent way possible. Officer Williams knelt down to pet the dog, who wagged its tail gently, showing signs of relief. "Thank you, buddy," he whispered, feeling a deep bond forming between them. The dog had shown incredible bravery and intelligence, and Officer Williams knew that their lives would never be the same after this morning's events. As they drove back to the police station with the rescued people safe in the patrol cars, Officer Williams couldn't stop thinking about the dog's actions. There was something extraordinary about the way it had guided them, almost as if it understood the gravity of the situation and had taken it upon itself to ensure that help arrived in time. The other officers began to discuss what had happened, their voices filled with a mix of awe and concern. They knew that there was more to uncover, more questions that needed answers. How had the dog known about the captives? Was there someone else out there, watching and waiting for the right moment to strike again? Back at the station, the officers began to piece together the events of the morning. They reviewed their patrol routes, searched for any signs of unusual activity, and considered the possibility that the dog had been tracking the captors for some time. Officer Williams knew that the dog was a crucial part of solving this mystery, and he felt a sense of duty to protect and support it. As the day went on, the officers worked tirelessly, gathering information and reaching out to the community for any clues that might help them understand what had happened. The dog stayed close by, offering comfort and companionship to the captives and the officers alike. Its presence was a reminder of the resilience and loyalty that animals can show, especially in times of crisis. Officer Williams couldn't help but feel a deep admiration for the dog. It had taken a significant risk to lead them to the captives, putting itself in harm's way to ensure their safety. The bond between humans and animals had never been stronger, and today had proven just how powerful that connection could be. As night began to fall, the officers knew that their work was far from over. There were still many questions to answer and dangers to face, but they felt more prepared and united than ever before. With the dog by their side, they were determined to uncover the truth and bring peace to those who had been wronged. The calm morning had indeed turned into chaos, but it had also brought hope and a sense of purpose. Officer Williams looked at the dog, who was now resting quietly after a long day of guiding them and protecting the captives. He knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead, and that their teamwork would be the key to solving the mystery and ensuring the safety of their community. Officer Williams stood outside the police station, enjoying the cool morning air. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. Birds chirped happily in the trees, and everything seemed calm and peaceful. It was the start of another regular day on duty. As Officer Williams took a deep breath, a sudden movement caught his eye. A large brown dog came running toward him, barking loudly. The dog's eyes were wide and filled with worry. It wasn't just any bark, it sounded like the dog was trying to say something important. Officer Williams was surprised. He had never seen this dog before, and it wasn't wearing a collar or any sign of ownership. The dog didn't run away or act scared. Instead, it kept looking back at Officer Williams, as if urging him to follow. The officer felt a strange connection with the dog. There was something about the way it behaved that made him feel like it needed help. Without thinking twice, Officer Williams decided to follow the dog. He motioned to his fellow officers to stay behind and walked slowly, trying not to scare the dog away. The dog continued to bark and lead the way, moving quickly now. Officer Williams followed, his curiosity growing with each step. They walked through the quiet streets of the neighborhood, passing by houses that were just starting to wake up for the day. The dog led Officer Williams to the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to a thick, dense forest. The officer hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should go any further. The dog looked back at him, eyes pleading, and Officer Williams knew he couldn't ignore it. He took a deep breath and stepped into the forest, with the dog right by his side. As they walked deeper into the woods, the trees grew taller and the path became narrower. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns on the ground. The air was cool and smelled fresh with the scent of pine and earth. Officer Williams followed the dog carefully, listening to its steady barking that seemed to guide him forward. After walking for what felt like hours, the dog suddenly stopped. Officer Williams looked around, trying to understand where they were. The dog started barking again, louder this time, and pointed toward a small clearing up ahead. The officer felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about the clearing that didn't feel right. As they approached the clearing, Officer Williams noticed an old, wooden shed hidden among the trees. The shed looked abandoned, with peeling paint and broken windows. The dog barked again, more urgently this time, and began to circle the shed, sniffing the ground around it. Officer Williams felt a sense of unease. He had a bad feeling about this place, but he couldn't turn back now. He slowly walked toward the shed, trying to remain calm. The dog stayed close, its body tense and alert. Officer Williams reached out to touch the door, but it was locked. He knocked gently, hoping someone inside would answer. But there was no response. The dog barked again, louder and more persistent, urging him to open the door. Feeling a mix of fear and determination, Officer Williams decided to try the door again. He knocked louder this time, but still, there was no answer. The dog began to growl, a low, menacing sound that sent shivers down the officer's spine. Officer Williams knew something was wrong. He reached into his pocket for his phone, thinking of calling for backup, but before he could do anything, the door of the shed slowly creaked open. Officer Williams stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. The door revealed a dark, shadowy interior. He could barely make out the shapes inside, but it was clear that something was terribly wrong. The dog growled again, more fiercely, as if trying to protect him from what lay inside. Officer Williams felt a surge of fear, but also a strong sense of duty. He had to find out what was happening. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the shed, the wooden floor creaking under his weight. The air inside was cold and musty, filled with the smell of damp wood and something else he couldn't quite identify. The dog stayed close, its body tense and ready to protect him. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, Officer Williams began to make out the shapes more clearly. In the corner of the shed, he saw several people huddled together, tied up and looking frightened. Their clothes were dirty, and their faces showed signs of fear and exhaustion. Officer Williams felt his stomach drop. These were innocent people, trapped and scared. He knew he had to help them, but he also felt a deep sense of dread about what he might find next. The dog stepped forward, barking loudly and growling, making it clear that there was danger nearby. Officer Williams looked around, trying to find the source of the fear. Suddenly, he heard a noise from outside the shed, a rustling in the bushes, footsteps approaching. His heart raced as he realized that someone might be coming to harm the captives. He quickly reached for his radio to call for backup, but the dog growled again, louder and more insistent. Officer Williams hesitated, torn between his duty to call for help and the fear that the dog was warning him of immediate danger. The dog's behavior was telling him that there was something terrible about to happen, something he needed to prepare for. Suddenly, a shadow moved outside the shed, and Officer Williams knew he wasn't alone. The footsteps grew louder, and he could see a figure approaching through the trees. His mind raced, trying to figure out what to do next. The dog stood protectively in front of him, ready to defend him and the captives. Officer Williams felt a mix of fear and gratitude for the brave dog that had led him to this place. As the figure came into view, Officer Williams could see that it was a man, dressed in dark clothes and moving with purpose. The man looked determined and angry, and Officer Williams knew that he was the one responsible for keeping these people captive. The officer felt a surge of adrenaline. He had to act quickly to protect everyone inside. Before the man could reach the shed, the dog lunged forward, barking loudly and baring its teeth. The man stopped in his tracks, startled by the dog's aggressive stance. Officer Williams saw his chance. He shouted for the man to stop and took a step forward, trying to appear brave despite his fear. The man didn't respond. Instead, he began to circle the shed, looking for another way in. Officer Williams felt his heart pound in his chest. He needed to keep the man away from the captives, but he wasn't sure how much longer he could hold him off alone. The dog stayed by his side, growling and ready to protect him at any cost. Just as the man was about to reach for a tool to break down the door, Officer Williams made a decision. He reached into his pocket and pressed the alarm button on his phone, hoping that the loud noise would distract the man and give him a chance to act. The phone rang loudly, and the man froze, momentarily confused by the sound. Officer Williams took advantage of the moment and grabbed the nearest officer's radio, calling out for immediate backup. "We need help here, now. We've got hostages and an intruder approaching," he shouted, his voice filled with urgency. The dog continued to bark and growl, making it clear that the threat was still present. The man hesitated, clearly irritated by the alarm and the shout for help. Officer Williams knew he had to act fast. He took another step forward, trying to appear more confident, while the dog stayed close, ready to defend him. The tension in the air was thick, and Officer Williams could feel his heart racing. Suddenly, the sound of sirens filled the air as backup arrived, the flashing lights visible through the trees. The man, realizing that he was outnumbered and outmatched, decided to retreat. He turned and ran back into the forest, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as he had appeared. Officer Williams let out a sigh of relief, but he knew the danger wasn't completely over yet. He turned his attention back to the captives, making sure they were safe and unharmed. The dog, now calmer, sat beside him, looking up with eyes full of trust and loyalty. Officer Williams felt a deep sense of gratitude for the brave animal that had led him to this place and protected him from harm. Without the dog's help, he might never have found the captives or stopped the intruder in time. As the backup officers arrived, Officer Williams briefed them on the situation, pointing out the captives and explaining how the dog had guided him to the shed. The other officers were amazed by the dog's behavior and quickly realized that this animal was more than just a pet, it was a hero. The captives, now free from their bonds, began to share their stories, grateful to be rescued. They spoke of how they had been trapped for days, unable to escape, and how the dog had been their only companion in the dark shed. Officer Williams listened carefully, his mind still reeling from the intense experience. He couldn't help but feel a strong bond with the dog, knowing that its actions had saved lives. As the sun continued to rise, casting a warm glow over the forest, Officer Williams looked down at the dog, who was now calmly sitting beside him. He reached out and gently patted the animal's head, feeling a deep sense of respect and admiration. The dog had asked for help in the only way it knew how, and it had led the police to the scene, ensuring that everyone was safe. The officer knew that this was just the beginning of their story. There would be investigations to conduct, questions to answer, and a lot of gratitude to express. But for now, he was content to stand beside the brave dog that had become a hero in his eyes. The dog had shown incredible loyalty and courage, and Officer Williams was determined to make sure that its bravery was recognized and honored. As the day went on, the police worked to secure the area and help the captives recover from their ordeal. The dog remained by Officer Williams' side, watching over the scene with a calm and steady presence. It was clear that the dog had a special connection to this place, a deep sense of purpose that had driven it to lead the police here. Officer Williams couldn't stop thinking about how the dog had known exactly where to go and what to do. It was as if the animal had an innate understanding of the situation, sensing the fear and danger that had kept the captives trapped for so long. The officer wondered if the dog had been searching for someone specific or if it had simply followed its instincts to help those in need. As night began to fall, the forest took on a different atmosphere, the shadows growing longer and the sounds of the day giving way to the quiet of the evening. Officer Williams and the other officers made sure that the captives were safe and began to plan for their transport to the station for further questioning and care. The dog remained a comforting presence, its eyes watching over the scene with a sense of calm assurance. Officer Williams felt a sense of peace knowing that the dog was there, ready to help if anything else happened. He knew that this was a bond that would not be easily forgotten. Back at the police station, Officer Williams shared the story of how the dog had guided them to the shed. His colleagues listened in awe, impressed by the animal's intelligence and bravery. They began to call the dog Hero, a fitting name for an animal that had saved lives through its courage and determination. Over the next few days, the story of the brave dog spread throughout the community. People came forward to offer their thanks and admiration, touched by the dog's selfless actions. Officer Williams found himself growing closer to the dog, spending more time with it and learning about its past. One day, a woman approached Officer Williams, tears in her eyes. She introduced herself as Mrs. Thompson, the owner of the dog. She explained that the dog had been her faithful companion for many years, always protective and loving. She had been heartbroken when the dog had gone missing, not knowing where it had gone or why. Mrs. Thompson had heard about the rescue and knew immediately that it was her dog. She rushed to the station, overjoyed to be reunited with her beloved pet. Officer Williams watched as Mrs. Thompson embraced the dog, her face lighting up with happiness and relief. It was a touching moment, one that showed the deep bond between humans and their pets. As the days passed, the dog's heroic actions were recognized and celebrated. Officer Williams felt proud to have worked alongside such a brave and loyal animal. He knew that this was a story that would be told for years to come, a testament to the incredible bond between humans and their furry friends. One evening, as Officer Williams was finishing his shift, he took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. He thought about the calm morning, the frantic barking, and the courageous actions that had saved lives. He realized that sometimes help comes in unexpected forms, and that heroes can come with 4 paws and a wagging tail. The dog sat beside him, looking up with eyes full of trust and gratitude. Officer Williams smiled, feeling a sense of contentment. He knew that this was just the beginning of their partnership, and that together, they could face whatever challenges came their way. As the night grew darker, Officer Williams and the dog made their way back to the police station, ready to face whatever the future held. They had formed a bond that went beyond words, a connection built on trust, loyalty, and the unspoken understanding that they were there for each other. In the days that followed, the dog continued to be a valuable member of the police team, assisting in various cases and providing comfort to those in need. Officer Williams knew that he had found not just a colleague, but a true friend and a hero. The story of the brave dog spread throughout the town, inspiring others to look out for each other and to appreciate the incredible bond between humans and their pets. Officer Williams felt a sense of pride knowing that he had played a part in bringing this hero to light. As time went on, the memory of that fateful morning remained with Officer Williams. He often thought about the dog's brave actions and the lives that had been saved because of it. He knew that the dog had changed his life in ways he could never have imagined, teaching him about courage, loyalty, and the true meaning of heroism. One day, as Officer Williams was walking through the park with the dog, he saw a group of children playing. He watched as they laughed and ran, their faces full of joy. The dog joined in, playing with the children and bringing smiles to their faces. Officer Williams felt a sense of happiness, knowing that the dog was bringing joy and comfort to others, just as it had done for him. The dog's actions had created a ripple effect of kindness and gratitude throughout the community. People were more aware of the importance of helping others and the incredible bond that can exist between humans and animals. Officer Williams felt proud to be part of such a positive change, all thanks to the brave dog that had led him to the shed. As the sun set on another day, Officer Williams looked down at the dog, now resting peacefully by his side. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the loyal companion that had become his friend and hero. Together, they had faced fear and danger, emerging stronger and more connected than ever before. Officer Williams knew that this was just one of many adventures they would share, and he looked forward to whatever the future held. With the brave dog by his side, he felt ready to take on any challenge and to continue making a difference in the lives of those around him. The bond between Officer Williams and the dog grew stronger each day, a testament to the incredible power of trust and loyalty. They had become an unstoppable team, working together to keep their community safe and to bring hope to those in need. And so, the story of the brave dog and the dedicated officer became a legend in their town, a story of courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bond between humans and their pets. It was a reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and that sometimes, the bravest hearts have 4 paws and a wagging tail. The sun was high in the sky, and the officers were still following the dog through the dense woods. The trees towered above them, their leaves whispering secrets as the gentle breeze rustled through them. The dog moved swiftly, never stopping, leading the officers deeper into the forest. Officer Williams glanced back at his colleagues, who looked equally determined and curious about where this loyal animal was taking them. As they walked, the dog's pace quickened, his ears perked up and his eyes fixed straight ahead. The officers felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They had never encountered a situation like this before, a dog guiding them through the woods in such an urgent manner. It was clear that something important awaited them, but they didn't know what it was. After what felt like hours of walking, the dog suddenly stopped. The officers looked around, trying to figure out where they were. They found themselves in a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing shadows on the ground. The dog stood still, his body tense and alert, as if he was sensing something the officers couldn't yet see. Officer Williams took a deep breath and stepped forward, signaling the others to follow. They approached the edge of the clearing, their eyes scanning the area for any sign of what the dog had found. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant sound of birds singing and the soft rustling of leaves. But there was an unease in the air, something that made their skin crawl. As they moved closer, the officers began to notice something strange. In the center of the clearing stood an old, dilapidated shed. Its wooden walls were weathered and covered in moss, and the roof sagged under the weight of years of neglect. The door to the shed was slightly ajar, and a faint, musty smell wafted out, mixing with the fresh scent of pine from the surrounding forest. The dog's growl grew louder, and he took a step toward the shed, his hackles raised. The officers exchanged worried glances. This was not just any shed, it felt like a place that held secrets, hidden away from the world. Officer Williams cautiously approached the door, his hand resting on his radio in case they needed to call for backup. He pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking loudly in the quiet clearing. Inside, the shed was dark and cramped, filled with old tools and broken furniture. But what caught the officers' attention were the sounds coming from the far corner. It was the faint sound of someone crying, muffled and desperate. Officer Williams motioned for the others to stay back as he stepped inside, the dog following closely behind. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw a figure huddled against the wall, trembling and alone. It was a woman, her clothes dirty and torn, her face streaked with tears. She looked up at the officers with fear in her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please," she pleaded, her voice shaking. "Help me. They're still out there." Officer Williams knelt down beside her, offering a comforting smile. "We're here to help. You're safe now." The woman took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "They're everywhere," she whispered. "They're watching us. We have to leave before they come back." The officers listened intently as she recounted her story. She had been taken by a group of dangerous men who had kept her locked in the shed for weeks. They had threatened her and made her feel hopeless, but she had managed to escape, thanks to the dog's unwavering determination to lead the officers to her. As the woman spoke, the officers realized the gravity of the situation. These men were still out there, lurking in the shadows of the forest, waiting for their chance to strike again. The dog had sensed the danger and guided them to the shed, ensuring that they could rescue the woman before it was too late. Officer Williams stood up, looking around the clearing. "We need to get you to safety," he said firmly. "The men who took you are still in the area. We can't take any chances." The woman nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and fear. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me." The officers quickly made their way out of the shed, keeping a close eye on their surroundings. The dog led the way, his ears twitching and his body tense, as if he could sense the presence of the men nearby. The forest seemed even darker and more foreboding now, the shadows lengthening as the sun began to dip toward the horizon. As they walked back through the woods, the officers remained vigilant, their senses on high alert. The dog led them swiftly, never slowing down, pushing them to move faster. The woman walked close behind, her steps hesitant but determined. The fear in her eyes was palpable, a constant reminder of the danger they were facing. Suddenly, the dog stopped and began to bark loudly, his body low to the ground. The officers froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They listened intently, trying to identify the source of the noise. The dog's growls turned into deep, menacing barks, and it was clear that something was very wrong. Officer Williams signaled for the others to take cover behind a large tree, their eyes scanning the darkening woods. The dog stood protectively in front of them, his growls echoing through the trees. The officers could feel their courage wavering, but they knew they had to stay strong for the sake of the woman they had rescued. From the shadows, figures began to emerge, men dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured by masks. They moved silently, their eyes fixed on the officers and the woman. The tension in the air was thick, each moment stretching out as the officers prepared for the worst. One of the men stepped forward, his voice cold and commanding. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his tone filled with anger and menace. "Now you're going to pay for what you did." Officer Williams stood tall, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "We're here to help her. Let her go, and no one else gets hurt." The man laughed, a harsh, grating sound that sent chills down everyone's spine. "You think you can protect her? You have no idea what you're dealing with." Before anyone could react, the men lunged forward, their intentions clear. The officers sprang into action, drawing their weapons and readying themselves for the confrontation. The dog, sensing the imminent threat, positioned himself between the officers and the attackers, his growls turning into fierce barks that filled the clearing with sound. The first officer fired a warning shot into the air, hoping to scare off the attackers. The men hesitated for a moment, but their resolve was unshaken. They advanced with a dangerous determination, eyes locked on the officers and the woman. The dog lunged at one of the men, his teeth bared and his body agile. The man stumbled back, momentarily surprised by the dog's ferocity. The officers took advantage of the distraction, firing their weapons with precision. The men were caught off guard, their plans unraveling in an instant. Despite their numbers, the attackers were no match for the combined efforts of the officers and the brave dog. One by one, the men were subdued, their threats silenced by the strength and courage of those trying to protect the innocent. The clearing became a scene of chaos and bravery, the officers fighting to ensure the safety of everyone involved. As the last of the attackers fell to the ground, silence returned to the forest. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the officers and the soft panting of the dog, who stood proudly by their side. The woman looked around, tears streaming down her face, relief washing over her as she realized she was finally safe. Officer Williams approached her slowly, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "You're safe now," he assured her, his voice gentle. "We're here to help." The woman nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and sorrow. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me." The officers quickly gathered their equipment and began to secure the area, ensuring that no further threats remained. The dog stayed close, his eyes still alert, ready to protect if needed. Officer Williams looked down at the brave animal, a deep sense of respect and admiration filling his heart. "You did a great job," he said softly to the dog. "You saved her life today." The dog wagged his tail slightly, his eyes meeting Officer Williams with a silent understanding. It was clear that the dog had played a crucial role in their rescue mission, guiding them to the woman and protecting them from harm. The bond between the officers and the dog had grown stronger through this ordeal, a testament to the unwavering loyalty and courage that animals can possess. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the forest, the officers and the woman made their way back to the station. The dog walked alongside them, his presence a comforting reminder of the bravery that had brought them all together. The woman clung to Officer Williams, her body shaking from the fear and relief of her rescue. When they reached the safety of the police station, the officers quickly made arrangements to get the woman the help she needed. They provided her with food, water, and a place to rest, ensuring that she was cared for after her harrowing experience. The dog, now calm and content, settled down near Officer Williams, his eyes following every movement with watchful attention. Officer Williams took a moment to reflect on the day's events, the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. The dog had been more than just an animal guiding them, it had been a hero in his own right, leading them to save a life and protect their community from danger. The officers knew that they owed a great debt of gratitude to the brave dog who had played such a pivotal role in their mission. As the evening turned to night, the station buzzed with activity, officers sharing stories of the day's events and processing the gravity of what had happened. The woman was given a quiet room to rest, her fears gradually easing as she realized she was finally safe. The dog remained by Officer Williams' side, his presence a comforting and reassuring force in the aftermath of the rescue. Officer Williams approached the dog, placing a hand gently on his head. "You're a true hero," he said sincerely. "We couldn't have done this without you." The dog looked up at him, his eyes filled with loyalty and pride. It was clear that he had found a new purpose, a reason to continue guiding and protecting those around him. The bond between human and animal had been solidified through their shared experience, a testament to the unspoken understanding and trust that existed between them. As the night wore on, the officers continued to secure the area, ensuring that no traces of the danger remained. The forest, once a place of fear and uncertainty, now felt a little safer, thanks to the bravery and determination of the dog and the officers who followed his lead. The woman, now settled in her room, began to share her story with those around her, her voice growing stronger with each word as she found the courage to move forward. The dog, content with his role in the rescue, lay down beside Officer Williams, his head resting gently on his paws. He had done his job, guiding the officers to the woman and protecting them from harm. Now, he could rest, knowing that he had made a difference and helped bring peace to someone in need. In the days that followed, the story of the brave dog and the rescue mission spread throughout the community. People marveled at the courage and loyalty of the animal who had led the officers to safety, a true testament to the bond between humans and their canine companions. The dog became a symbol of hope and bravery, a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come in the form of a furry friend with a heart full of courage. Officer Williams and his team received commendations for their swift and effective response, but they knew that the real hero was the dog who had guided them through the darkness. They made sure to visit him regularly, offering treats and affection as a token of their gratitude. The dog, now a beloved member of the station, continued to serve alongside them, his presence a comforting and reassuring force in their daily lives. The woman, now recovering from her ordeal, found solace in the support of the community and the officers who had saved her. She shared her story with others, hoping to inspire courage and resilience in those who faced their own challenges. The dog, always by her side, provided a sense of comfort and companionship, his loyalty unwavering as she began to rebuild her life. As time passed, the memory of that terrifying day began to fade, replaced by the stories of bravery and heroism that had emerged from the darkness. The dog remained a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the most frightening situations, there is always a chance for courage and compassion to shine through. The officers continued to serve their community with dedication and pride, knowing that they had a faithful companion who would always be there to guide and protect them. In the end, the bond between the officers, the dog, and the woman became a powerful story of friendship and bravery, a testament to the incredible things that can happen when trust and loyalty come together in the face of adversity. The dog had asked for help, guided the police through danger, and in doing so, had saved lives and changed the course of their lives forever. His actions had brought fear to the men who intended harm, but they had also brought hope and safety to those who needed it most. The dog, once a lost and distressed animal, had found his place among the officers and the community, His bravery and loyalty a shining example of the incredible bond between humans and their animal companions. And as the sun set on another peaceful day, the officers knew that they could always count on their brave friend to lead them through whatever challenges lay ahead, ensuring that their community remained safe and protected. Officer Williams took a deep breath as he pushed open the creaky door of the old wooden shed. The air inside was thick and musty, filled with the scent of damp wood and something else, something sour and unsettling. The dim light from the morning sun barely penetrated the dark interior, casting long shadows that danced eerily on the walls. Inside the shed, the scene that greeted them was something no one could have imagined. There were several people tied up, their hands bound behind their backs, and their legs secured to old, rusty nails embedded in the wooden floor. They looked worn out and frightened, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Some of them were crying softly, while others remained silent, their faces pale and drawn from exhaustion and terror. Officer Williams felt his heart race as he took in the sight. He motioned for his fellow officers to spread out and secure the area, making sure no one else could enter or leave without their knowledge. The dog, still standing guard at the entrance, watched them closely, its eyes never leaving the officers as they moved cautiously inside. One of the captives, a young woman with tears streaming down her face, looked up at Officer Williams with a mixture of hope and fear. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "help us." Williams knelt down beside her, trying to offer some comfort. "We're here to help you," he assured her gently. "Can you tell us what happened?" Before she could respond, another officer approached from the back of the shed, a stern expression on his face. "Officer Williams, we need to secure this area. There might be more to this situation than meets the eye." Williams nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He stood up and took a step back, allowing the other officers to do their jobs. The dog remained by his side, its presence a silent reminder of the urgency that had brought them here. As the officers began to untie the captives, the tension in the room was palpable. The dog watched every movement, its ears perked up and its body tense, ready to react if anything went wrong. The woman Williams had spoken to tried to sit up, wincing as she did so. "They took us here last night," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were just walking home when they grabbed us. They brought us here and locked us up." Williams listened intently, his mind racing to piece together the events that led to this moment. "Do you know who they are?" he asked softly. The woman shook her head, tears still flowing down her cheeks. "No, they didn't say. They just wanted money and valuables. They threatened to hurt us if we didn't comply." Another officer, Detective Harper, stepped forward, taking notes in his small notebook. "Did you see anything that could help us identify them? Any distinguishing features or voices?" The woman hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. "One of them had a scar on his left cheek," she said. "And he had a deep, rough voice. The others were wearing masks, so I couldn't see their faces clearly." Harper made a note of this, his pen moving quickly across the page. "Thank you. This information is very helpful." As the officers continued to free the captives, the dog remained vigilant, occasionally barking softly as if to ensure that everything was proceeding smoothly. It seemed to sense that there was still danger lurking nearby, and its protective instincts were in full force. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from outside the shed. The officers froze, their hands instinctively moving to their holsters. The dog immediately tensed, its hackles raised and its stance defensive. Everyone inside the shed held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Through the small window, they saw a shadowy figure moving swiftly towards the shed. The man was tall and lean, his movements quick and deliberate. He had the same scar-made cheek that the woman had described, and his eyes were filled with anger and desperation. Without hesitation, Officer Williams sprang into action. "Stay back," he commanded, his voice firm and authoritative. "Don't let him get in here." The dog responded instantly, lunging forward with a fierce bark that echoed through the shed. The man paused, his eyes meeting the dog's determined gaze. For a moment, there was a standoff, the tension so thick it was almost tangible. The man took a step back, reassessing the situation. He glanced around, trying to find another way into the shed, but the officers had quickly secured all the entrances and exits. Frustration flickered across his face as he realized he was cornered. Williams approached cautiously, keeping his eyes on the man while trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "We don't want any trouble," he said slowly. "Let us help you and get out of here peacefully." The man hesitated, glancing at the captives still tied up inside. "You don't understand," he growled, his voice wavering between anger and fear. "I just needed the money. Please, let me go." Detective Harper stepped forward, placing himself slightly between the man and the captives. "It's over," he said firmly. "You're not going to hurt anyone else." The man looked around desperately, his eyes darting from the officers to the dog and back again. The dog continued to bark, its body poised to protect the officers and the captives if necessary. It was clear that the dog was a loyal protector, determined to keep everyone safe from harm. After what felt like an eternity, the man seemed to realize that he had no way out. His shoulders slumped, and he let out a heavy sigh. "Fine," he muttered, turning to leave. "But you haven't heard the last of this." As the man retreated into the shadows, the officers remained on high alert, watching his every move until he was completely out of sight. Once they were certain he was gone, the tension in the shed began to ease, replaced by a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Williams took a moment to catch his breath, glancing down at the dog who had been their silent guardian throughout the ordeal. "Good job, buddy," he said softly, giving the dog a reassuring pat on the head. The dog wagged its tail slightly, as if acknowledging the praise, but still remaining vigilant. The officers gathered the captives together, helping them to their feet and offering words of comfort and reassurance. The woman who had first spoken to Williams managed a shaky smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved our lives." Williams nodded, feeling a deep sense of relief wash over him. "It's our job," he replied. "We're just glad you're safe now." As the captives began to process their release, the officers contacted their superiors to report the situation and request further assistance. The police station was soon bustling with activity, officers arriving to help secure the area and ensure that no more harm would come to the captives. Throughout it all, the dog remained by William's side, its presence a constant source of comfort and protection. The bond between the officers and the dog was evident, a testament to the animal's unwavering loyalty and courage in the face of danger. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, the officers knew that their work was far from over. They needed to investigate how the captives had ended up in the shed, who the man was, and whether there were any others involved in the abduction. Detective Harper took charge, organizing a team to gather evidence and interview the captives in more detail. "We need to piece together what happened here," he said, his voice steady and determined. "Every bit of information could be crucial." Williams watched as his fellow officers moved with purpose, each one focused on their tasks. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in their teamwork and dedication. The situation had been terrifying, but together, they had managed to save innocent lives and prevent further harm. The dog, sensing the shift in focus, settled down at William's feet, its eyes still alert but no longer barking. It had done its job, guiding the officers to the scene and protecting them from immediate danger. But the journey was not yet complete. There were still questions to be answered and justice to be served. As night fell and the area was secured, the officers took a moment to reflect on the events of the day. They sat together, sharing stories and offering support to one another. The dog lay beside them, finally allowing itself to relax after the day's tension. Williams looked down at the dog, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "You did good today," he said quietly. "You really did." The dog lifted its head, meeting William's gaze with eyes full of understanding and loyalty. It was more than just a guide or a protector, it was a hero in its own right, a true friend who had played a pivotal role in saving lives and bringing hope to a fearful situation. As the officers prepared to leave, ensuring that the captives were safe and that all necessary steps were taken, Williams took one last look at the dog. "Come on, buddy," he said with a smile. "Let's head home." The dog trotted alongside him, its steps light and confident. Together, they walked back towards the police station, leaving behind the shed and the horrors it held. But the memories of what had transpired would stay with them forever, a reminder of the bravery and compassion that had come from an unexpected source. In the days that followed, the story of the dog's heroic actions spread throughout the community. People marveled at how an ordinary dog had played such an extraordinary role in saving lives and uncovering the truth. The officers were praised for their quick thinking and teamwork, but it was clear that the dog's contribution had been the key to their success. The woman and the others who had been held captive began to heal, finding strength in the support of their families and the community. They shared their stories, grateful for the officers and the dog who had rescued them from their nightmare. Williams and his fellow officers continued their patrols, now with a newfound respect and appreciation for the loyal animal that had become an integral part of their team. The dog, ever watchful and ready to assist, remained a constant presence, a symbol of hope and protection in their community. One evening, as Williams was finishing his shift, he found the dog waiting patiently outside the station. He knelt down, scratching behind its ears. "Ready to go home?" he asked, and the dog responded with a happy wag of its tail. As they walked together under the starry sky, Williams couldn't help but feel a deep sense of connection and gratitude. The day's events had been frightening and challenging, but they had also brought out the best in everyone involved. The dog's unwavering loyalty and bravery had made all the difference, turning a terrifying situation into a story of courage and compassion. The bond between the officers and the dog had grown stronger, a testament to the power of teamwork and the incredible impact that one brave animal could have on their lives and the lives of others. Together, they had faced fear and danger, emerging victorious and united by their shared experience. As they reached William's home, the dog looked up at him with eyes full of trust and affection. William smiled, knowing that they had formed a partnership that would endure, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he thought about the day's events and the role the dog had played in saving lives and bringing peace to a troubled situation. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for having such a loyal and courageous companion by his side. The dog, resting peacefully at the foot of the bed, seemed to understand the bond they shared. It had guided the officers to the shed, protected them from harm, and ensured that the truth was uncovered. In doing so, it had become more than just a pet or a guard dog. It had become a true hero, a beloved member of the police team, and a cherished friend. As sleep gently took hold, Williams knew that the story of the brave dog would be remembered by everyone involved. It was a story of fear, courage, and the incredible bond between humans and animals. And it was a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected heroes come with 4 legs and a wagging tail, ready to make a difference when it matters most. In the days that followed, the police department decided to honor the dog's bravery. They held a small ceremony, inviting the community to join in recognizing the hero who had saved lives and brought peace to a fearful situation. The dog stood proudly beside Williams, its head held high and its eyes shining with pride. Children from the neighborhood attended the ceremony, their eyes wide with admiration as they listened to the officers speak about the dog's heroic actions. The dog wagged its tail happily, enjoying the attention and the affection from the crowd. It was clear that the dog had become a beloved figure in the community, a symbol of hope and protection. Williams addressed the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "This dog showed incredible courage and loyalty today. Without its help, we might not have been able to save these lives. We're grateful for its bravery and dedication." The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for the dog that had become a hero in their midst. Children rushed forward to pet the dog, their smiles wide and their hearts full of admiration. The dog enjoyed the attention, nuzzling against their hands and wagging its tail in delight. After the ceremony, Williams took a moment to sit with the dog, reflecting on the day's events. "You did good today, buddy," he said softly. "You really did. The dog looked up at him with eyes full of understanding and gratitude. It was more than just a guide or a protector. It was a true friend who had played a pivotal role in saving lives and bringing hope to a fearful situation. As time passed, the story of the dog's heroic actions continued to inspire others. People shared the story with friends and family, spreading the message of courage and loyalty that the dog had embodied. The dog became a local legend, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope and the possibility of heroes emerging from the most unexpected places. The officers continued their patrols, now with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for their canine companion. The dog's presence brought comfort and security to the team, strengthening their bond and their commitment to protecting the community. One afternoon, as Williams and the dog were on patrol, they encountered a group of children playing in the park. The children recognized the dog immediately, running over to greet it with smiles and laughter. The dog wagged its tail happily, enjoying the attention and the joy it brought to the young ones. "Look, it's the hero dog," one of the children exclaimed, pointing excitedly. "Thank you for saving everyone." William smiled, watching as the dog interacted with the children. "He's a very special dog," he said, ruffling the dog's fur. "Always looking out for us." The dog nuzzled against William's hand, its eyes shining with happiness. It was clear that the dog relished its role as a protector and a friend, bringing comfort and safety to those around it. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Williams and the dog continued their patrol, knowing that their partnership was stronger than ever. They had faced fear and danger together, emerging victorious and united by their shared experience. The bond between them was unbreakable, a testament to the power of loyalty and the incredible impact that one brave animal could have on the lives of others. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he felt a deep sense of contentment and gratitude. The day's events had reinforced the importance of teamwork and the incredible bond between humans and animals. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and the dog would face them together, ready to protect and serve their community with courage and compassion. The dog, resting peacefully at the foot of the bed, seemed to understand the bond they shared. It had guided the officers to the shed, protected them from harm, and ensured that the truth was uncovered. In doing so, it had become more than just a pet or a guard dog. It had become a true hero, a beloved member of the police team, and a cherished friend. As sleep gently took hold, Williams felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that the dog's bravery and loyalty would always be remembered and celebrated. It was a story of fear, courage, and the incredible bond between humans and animals, a story that would inspire others for years to come. In the days that followed, the community continued to honor the dog's heroic actions. The local newspaper ran a feature story highlighting the dog's bravery and the officers' quick response. Photos of the dog with the officers and the rescued captives were displayed in the town square, serving as a daily reminder of the courage and compassion that had saved lives and brought hope to a fearful situation. The dog enjoyed the attention, basking in the affection and praise from the community. Children continued to visit, eager to meet the hero who had become a beloved figure in their town. The dog reveled in the love and appreciation, its tail wagging happily with each new friend it made. Williams and the dog continued their patrols, now with a deeper understanding of each other's strengths and capabilities. They worked seamlessly together, anticipating each other's movements and communicating without words. Their bond was a source of strength and comfort, a testament to the power of trust and loyalty. One evening, as they were walking through the park, Williams reflected on the events that had brought them closer together. "You know," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "we couldn't have done it without you. You truly are a hero." The dog looked up at him, its eyes shining with understanding and pride. It had done more than just guide the officers to the shed. It had become a symbol of hope and protection for the entire community. Its actions had saved lives and brought peace to a fearful situation, earning it a place of honor and respect. As they continued their walk, Williams felt a sense of gratitude for having such a loyal and brave companion by his side. The dog's unwavering dedication and courage had made all the difference, turning a terrifying situation into a story of heroism and compassion. The community's support and appreciation had strengthened their bond, creating a lasting legacy of courage and loyalty. The dog's heroic actions had inspired others to be brave and compassionate, fostering a sense of unity and resilience within the community. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Williams and the dog made their way back to the police station, knowing that they had made a difference in the lives of others. The dog's presence brought comfort and security, a constant reminder of the incredible bond they shared and the power of loyalty and courage in the face of adversity. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he thought about the day's events and the role the dog had played in saving lives and bringing peace to a fearful situation. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for having such a loyal and courageous companion by his side. The dog, resting peacefully at the foot of the bed, seemed to understand the bond they shared. It had guided the officers to the shed, protected them from harm, and ensured that the truth was uncovered. In doing so, it had become more than just a pet or a guard dog. It had become a true hero, a beloved member of the police team, and a cherished friend. As sleep gently took hold, Williams knew that the story of the brave dog would be remembered by everyone involved. It was a story of fear, courage, and the incredible bond between humans and animals. And it was a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected heroes come with 4 legs and a wagging tail, ready to make a difference when it matters most. In the days that followed, the dog's heroic actions continued to inspire others. People shared the story with friends and family, spreading the message of courage and loyalty that the dog had embodied. The dog became a local legend, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope and the possibility of heroes emerging from the most unexpected places. The officers continued their patrols, now with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for their canine companion. The dog's presence brought comfort and security to the team, strengthening their bond and their commitment to protecting the community. One afternoon, as Williams and the dog were on patrol, they encountered a group of children playing in the park. The children recognized the dog immediately, running over to greet it with smiles and laughter. The dog wagged its tail happily, enjoying the attention and the joy it brought to the young ones. "Look, it's the hero dog," one of the children exclaimed, pointing excitedly. "Thank you for saving everyone." William smiled, watching as the dog interacted with the children. "He's a very special dog," he said, ruffling the dog's fur. "Always looking out for us." The dog nuzzled against William's hand, its eyes shining with happiness. It was clear that the dog relished its role as a protector and a friend, bringing comfort and safety to those around it. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Williams and the dog continued their patrol, knowing that their partnership was stronger than ever. They had faced fear and danger together, emerging victorious and united by their shared experience. The bond between them was unbreakable, a testament to the power of loyalty and the incredible impact that one brave animal could have on the lives of others. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he felt a deep sense of contentment and gratitude. The day's events had reinforced the importance of teamwork and the incredible bond between humans and animals. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he and the dog would face them together, ready to protect and serve their community with courage and compassion. The dog, resting peacefully at the foot of the bed, seemed to understand the bond they shared. It had guided the officers to the shed, protected them from harm, and ensured that the truth was uncovered. In doing so, it had become more than just a pet or a guard dog. It had become a true hero, a beloved member of the police team, and a cherished friend. As sleep gently took hold, Williams felt a sense of peace wash over him, knowing that the dog's bravery and loyalty would always be remembered and celebrated. It was a story of fear, courage, and the incredible bond between humans and animals, a story that would inspire others for years to come. In the days that followed, the police department decided to honor the dog's bravery. They held a small ceremony, inviting the communities to join in recognizing the hero who had saved lives and brought peace to a fearful situation. The dog stood proudly beside Williams, its head held high and its eyes shining with pride. The crowd gathered at the town square, a banner reading "Thank you, Hero Dog," hanging above them. Families, friends, and neighbors filled the area, eager to show their appreciation for the brave animal that had become a beloved figure in their town. Children brought drawings and treats, excited to meet the dog who had saved so many lives. Williams addressed the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "This dog showed incredible courage and loyalty today. Without its help, we might not have been able to save these lives. We're grateful for its bravery and dedication." The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for the dog that had become a hero in their midst. Children rushed forward to pet the dog, their smiles wide and their hearts full of admiration. The dog enjoyed the attention, nuzzling against their hands and wagging its tail in delight. After the ceremony, Williams took a moment to sit with the dog, reflecting on the day's events. "You did good today, buddy," he said quietly. "You really did." The dog looked up at him with eyes full of understanding and loyalty. It was more than just a guide or a protector, it was a true friend who had played a pivotal role in saving lives and bringing hope to a fearful situation. As time passed, the story of the dog's heroic actions continued to inspire others. People shared the story with friends and family, spreading the message of courage and loyalty that the dog had embodied. The dog became a local legend, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope and the possibility of heroes emerging from the most unexpected places. The officers continued their patrols, now with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for their canine companion. The dog's presence brought comfort and security to the team, strengthening their bond and their commitment to protecting the community. One evening, as they were walking through the park, Williams reflected on the events that had brought them closer together. "You know," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "we couldn't have done it without you. You truly are a hero." The dog looked up at him, its eyes shining with understanding and pride. It had done more than just guide the officers to the shed, it had become a symbol of hope and protection for the entire community. Its actions had saved lives and brought peace to a fearful situation, earning it a place of honor and respect. As they continued their walk, Williams felt a sense of gratitude for having such a loyal and brave companion by his side. The dog's unwavering dedication and courage had made all the difference, turning a terrifying situation into a story of heroism and compassion. The bond between the officers and the dog had grown stronger, a testament to the power of teamwork and the incredible impact that one brave animal could have on the lives of others. Together, they had faced fear and danger, emerging victorious and united by their shared experience. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Williams and the dog made their way back to the police station, knowing that they had made a difference in the lives of others. The dog's presence brought comfort and security, a constant reminder of the incredible bond they shared and the power of loyalty and courage in the face of adversity. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he thought about the day's events and the role the dog had played in saving lives and bringing peace to a fearful situation. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for having such a loyal and courageous companion by his side. The dog, resting peacefully at the foot of the bed, seemed to understand the bond they shared. It had guided the officers to the shed, protected them from harm, and ensured that the truth was uncovered. In doing so, it had become more than just a pet or a guard dog, it had become a true hero, a beloved member of the police team, and a cherished friend. As sleep gently took hold, Williams knew that the story of the brave dog would be remembered by everyone involved. It was a story of fear, courage, and the incredible bond between humans and animals. And it was a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected heroes come with 4 legs and a wagging tail, ready to make a difference when it matters most.